Talking affordable housing, social housing, the need for it. We've been discussing this on and off, of course, for a long time. And as we approach July 1st, moving day here in Quebec, again, the concern is there's not enough housing. It's one of the concerns. We don't want people left on the street. In fact, the city weighed in today saying they're going to work hard to make sure that doesn't happen. But the bottom line is when this story came up, we both kind of looked at each other and went, okay, wait a sec, this seems a bit odd, but maybe this is an opportunity. And the story is this, a Toronto-based company has decided to take some of their portfolio of rental units in Montreal, a lot of them in the NDG-Côte-des-Neiges area, and make them available for sale.
Mm-hmm. Affordable, potentially very affordable units right here in Montreal.
And then you're thinking, that's great, city can get involved, so let's try to find out more. JULIAN SCHONFELDT is the Chief Investment Officer at Canadian Apartment Properties. He's on the line right now. JULIAN, thanks for the time this afternoon.
Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about cap REITs and the market here.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what is going to happen here, what you'd like to see happen here. When we talk about units here, how many are we talking about in the Montreal area?
Yeah, so what we own right now in the Montreal area is just over 8,000 suites. As a matter of practice, we don't comment on any potential future transactions that may or may not be considered. But what I can say is, and as a matter of public record, is that we've sold approximately $140 million of properties in Montreal so far this year, in a few different areas, in Saint Laurent and South Shore primarily. But it's worth caveating from our end that in 2022 we acquired just under $400 million of rental properties in Montreal.
Okay.
So when you take that in the broader context, we've actually been a significant net buyer in Montreal.
Okay. I was going to say, I could imagine, that's selling a portion of your portfolio. That's close to half if you're going to look at it from 190 to roughly 400 million. Can I ask, and I realize you have limits as to what you can reveal. The city of Montreal has made an effort, I guess, to try to say it wants to buy buildings, it wants to make affordable housing possible. Have you been in contact or in negotiations with the city?
Yeah, no, the city has said that, and from our standpoint, yes, we are open to selling affordable buildings to the city and to nonprofit organizations in general. Cap REIT's been public in its support for these types of programs. Specifically, you'll see we issued a press release applauding the announcement in BC, where they have a $500 million rental protection fund. So it's something we're supportive of.
Okay.
Right now in Quebec, there's a bit of a unique program, this preemptive right that they can assign to certain properties, which allows them to pick them up if there's a transaction once the buyer's waived. It's a bit different from what we've seen in other provinces, and could potentially present a few challenges to liquidity in the market. But we are generally open to selling to the city for assets that we would consider selling.
Okay, I know you don't want to comment on specific transactions, but maybe you could tell us how many units we're talking about specifically in this borough of NDG-Côte-des-Neiges. How many units are we talking about that could potentially be affordable housing?
In that district, the vast majority of what's there is going to be affordable. Okay. But again, we're not confirming or denying or really.
But you have hundreds of units available for sale in that borough.
We own hundreds of units, but again, we don't really have anything publicly listed at the moment.
Okay.
And, whether or not we would do that in the future is something.
All right. So I understand there have to be some sort of.
That's fair.
Some discretion here as to what you can and can't say. I want to talk to Ted. Julie, thank you so much, by the way. If you want to stay on, Ted Rutland's an associate professor at Concordia University, and we have spoken before about tenants' rights and stuff. Ted, when you first hear something like this, that a large portfolio of rental units, might be available to sell, which might be good news. The city could walk in and buy it. Is this good news, or do we have to be leery here?
I think it's good news, and it always pays to be a bit leery as well. I think, I've got some criticisms of the way the Projet Montréal party has handled housing issues in the city, but when it comes to the specific piece of that we call affordable housing, and the use of the city's powers to borrow and the right of preemption in order to expand affordable housing options in the city, I think it's an amazing program. It's not unprecedented. It actually looks a lot like a program introduced in the late 1980s and early 90s, where the city used its ability to borrow money to buy up rental housing and then to operate it on a nonprofit basis, usually by, handing it over to the municipal housing office or nonprofit. So I think this is really, really important. I think it's really great. The the leery part is, of course, we have to look. The city will have to look at the prices that are involved here and determine whether this is the price that makes it worth it. But the general idea of buying up housing that's being operated on a for-profit basis in order to keep it more affordable over time is really, really, really important.
Okay.
This preemption, the provision that you spoke about and that was referred to earlier as a bit of a hindrance, in this context, do you not see it as such? Is it not a hindrance to the process?
I don't think so. No, I mean, if property owners want to sell property, then they put it on the market the same way as normally, and then people will bid on it. And what the right of preemption does is that it means that if the city wants to buy something, they don't have to sort of guess at what the highest price would be, right, and then probably bid higher than they want to in order to maybe get the property. They can just allow the bidding process to proceed and buy it at whatever the highest price offered was. So it's a way of ensuring that, diminishing a little bit the price inflation that can happen within a bidding process.
Yeah, and of course, it would have to, at that point, if it was going to be bought privately, the city, by virtue of this clause, knows where the ceiling is, right? They know how much someone is prepared to buy it for. They can always walk in and spend more. Question is, should they decide not to, Ted, then we know that buyer can then take those units, and if he or she chooses, rent them for whatever they want, or are they restricted in a sense?
No. If the city decides that they don't want to use the right of preemption because the price is more than they feel is appropriate, then somebody else is going to buy it, and presumably they'll operate it on a for-profit basis.
Okay, so
which means rents would probably go up.
Right. We're out of time, but I just want to seize upon quickly. We always hear build, build, build. We need to build more, but it sounds to me like we have a whole lot that's already been built that we could be using better.
I think we need to do both, right?
Okay.
I think, if there's a lot of affordable housing in the city right now that just happens to be affordable because it's older, because it's not the most fancy housing possible. And if the city can step in, use its power of borrowing to buy that, then that's kind of break on the sort of price inflation on property values and on rent. And it's a way of ensuring that housing remains affordable in the long term.
All right. Interesting. We'll see what happens. Again, I realize there's a bit of confidentiality involved here in revealing exactly what's up for grabs and what will be sold, at least for the time being. Ted, thanks so much. Appreciate it.